Right, ladies and gentlemen, let's start for day 2. Welcome and thank you everyone for coming. My name is Halil Kama from the London Internet Exchange. I'll be replacing Nishal for this morning, so you have myself. Firstly, we'll be starting with a session from Yazid Akanho from ICANN. He'll be presenting about Be Kind DNS. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. My pleasure to be in Muscat. Time flies, eh? It's already my last day here. I hope Fahad will find a solution for me to extend my stay here. I must admit that Muscat is my best trip for this year, honestly. I thought that Iceland was, but definitely Oman is. So thanks for the vibes of the city. And yeah, let's talk about kindness, being kind with each other on the internet, right? And we all know that the domain name system is one of those critical resources for the internet. And over the years, we have seen a couple of incidents that more or less partially affected the internet. And we thought at ICANN in 2020 that the time has come to sit together, right, and find a sort of solution to address some of those issues. The pictures you are seeing here were taken at the official launching of Kindness. This was 2 years ago now, in September 2022. And during that time, we were going through the COVID, right? And when this started, all of us, we understood that we have to protect ourselves, to protect our beloved as well, right? And we started wearing the masks for security reasons, for safety and for security reasons, right? So the same way on the internet, over these 40 years of the domain name system, we have seen some kind of, challenges based on this DNS. And some of them are let's say, more or less severe in terms of impact. And when you do the troubleshooting or you do the analysis, you realize that it is mainly because the people in charge of those systems did not take, let's say they probably neglect some, best practices. And the majority of them already existed since the beginning of the DNS, back to 1983, 1984, 85, etc., etc. And down the road, we have also learned a lot, right? Experience. So from experience, the big operators, the different network operators, the different domain name system administrators, they went through different sort of challenges, right? So you have on one side the standards of the technology, and on the other side, you have the best operational practices, right? So how can we put all this together at one single place to allow people, to allow domain name system service providers to be able to actually go and read about what are the key operational practices to implement and to ensure that the way they are operating the system actually follow those best practices. This is what kindness is about. So it's a framework that provides a couple of services. One of them is an assessment, is a free self-assessment tool. Another one is a pool of guidelines, of best practices that you can implement, right? So those guidelines are really important, and they have been categorized in different profiles of DNS service provider. We all know that when we talk about the DNS, there are two different categories, right? There is the DNS resolution service, which is provided by the recursive resolvers, right? We have like some open recursive resolvers. There are some famous ones that are used, right? That can be used by anyone. But in our different networks, in our different infrastructures, we can also implement our own private recursive resolvers, right? And definitely, those two recursive resolvers types, even if they are providing the same service, which is the resolution service, right? But they are not set up the same way in terms of security, in terms of resilience, in terms of high availability, right? It is completely different in the spirit of how these kind of recursive resolvers operate. So the best practices are actually different. If you are operating your own internal private recursive resolver versus you are operating an open public recursive resolver, right? One major difference, for instance, is that you should be ready, right, to absorb a large number of traffic if you are operating an open recursive resolver, because the queries might be coming from anywhere, right, all around the world, versus a private recursive resolver that you have set up only for your customers, for your network, for your infrastructure. So you will be basically rejecting any kind of traffic coming from a source which doesn't belong to your network. On the other side, you have the authoritative DNS servers, right? Those ones are in charge of serving zone files. So when you register for a domain name, you also it's mandatory, you have to set up at least 2 authoritative DNS servers. And the best practices recommend that those 2 should not be put in the same network, not in the same location, right? For instance, don't put them in the same data center, don't put them in the same physical network, for instance. But until now, we still see some network operators, we still see some DNS service providers, we still see some registrants who actually don't follow those best practices, right? So let's imagine, I was in a country, I won't blame anyone, right? I won't shoot any gun today. So the government domain name was actually hosted in a same infrastructure. And one day, for 20 plus years, they have been running like that. And all of a sudden, one day, the network went down. The government was paralyzed. And they were quite surprised. It has been working like that for, we don't even know, right? So why all of a sudden today we are facing this issue? Yeah, you are facing this issue because you have never gone through this kind of issue. And probably in your disaster recovery process, you have never planned about this kind of incident. Otherwise, you will have probably, get ready to avoid this. So this is what kindness is about, right? We are providing the guidelines, the known best operational practices to allow any kind of organization. Even if you are a small one, you don't have the resources, you don't have the expertise, right? But you can still rely on this reference, you can still rely on this framework to ensure if what you are doing is following the best practices. So for each of those categories, we came up with a list of best operational practices. Kindness is driven by ICANN, but not managed by ICANN alone. So all these practices have been intensively discussed in a mailing list, which is an open one. You are more than welcome to join if you want. And so we had like 18 months of discussion of what should be a best practice, what should not, right? What is really mandatory, what could not be, etc., etc. Depending again on the category of DNS service provider that you are. So for the authoritative DNS operators, for instance, we have identified that some domain names are really critical, right? If you take a CCTLD, a country code top-level domain, or a generic top-level domain, or a domain name which is registered for the government, right? Or for the online visa application, for instance, or for a hospital providing different kind of services online, etc., etc. Those ones are critical, right? So we came up with a list of 7 or 8 practices that this kind of domain name should actually follow for the DNS infrastructure serving this domain name. The same for the second level domain names as well. There are some slight differences, but the concept remains the same. For instance, we identified the KINDNS community, which is not, again, composed of ICANN alone. We had a lot of experts from the community who also joined this conversation, shared their point of view. Some of those discussions were not easy at all, I can tell you. But at the end, we reached a certain consensus. And coincidentally, we were debating some of those practices when this Facebook outage actually came through. And we know that Meta is a big organization, right? So they definitely put a lot of effort in operating their infrastructure. It turned out that all the DNS servers, right, the authoritative DNS servers, are located in the same autonomous system, in their autonomous system. It's probably something that they accept in terms of risk assessment. And they probably take, the majority of, or the measures that should follow to ensure a high availability of the network until this outage came up, right? And it was a big lesson learned. For themselves, but also for the internet community in general. A couple of years ago, we also went through some different incidents, and from my small experience, I can tell you that I have seen so many different things that, for me, were sometimes it's just, you ask yourself, oh, what's going on here? Why are they neglecting these basics until something wrong happens, right? But how can we prevent this kind of incidents? If you go through the KINDNS assessment, you can actually, answer a couple of questions that are in the assessment. And basically, those questions are following these best practices that have been listed in each of those categories. At the end of the assessment, you get a report, right? And this report actually tells you where you stand in the KINDNS framework. Not only your DNS infrastructure will be assessed, but the core network as well will be assessed, because at the end of the day, no matter which kind of DNS infrastructure you are using, if you are running virtual machines or hardware, if you are hosting in the cloud or you are hosting your own infrastructure, at the end of the day, all of these run on a physical system, right? So assessing the core of the infrastructure is also part of the best practices, to ensure that your infrastructure will provide, a high availability for your DNS service, which can quickly become a nightmare if you are not also considering the infrastructure itself. So, like I said, you have the self-assessment that you can go through. But on the other side, you also have the database of these guidelines and the best practices, right? So in these guidelines, you can actually select your category and go through the different practices. And for each of them, there are some recommendations on how you could implement them in your infrastructure. Kindness is not intended to propose a single way of thinking, a single way of doing. On the contrary, what kindness is just doing is we need to ensure that we are doing this. How we are doing it is up to each other. But still, there are some recommendations from some of those open source vendors that are also presented in the guidelines that you can easily follow. You may decide to not follow what the DNS software vendor proposes, and you can design your own approach. But at the end of the day, the most important thing is to ensure that this practice is actually implemented in your infrastructure. And like I said, the self-assessment provides you a report at the end that you can download in the PDF format. You can share this with your management. You can share this with your operational team. It's anonymous. No personal information is collected. But optionally, you can put at the beginning of the assessment, you can put the name of your organization if you are willing to. Some quick statistics from the beginning of this year versus where we are now. So we are currently at almost 2,000 number of self-assessment responses. So in 2 years, we have reached almost 2,000 self-assessment, activities that we recorded in the system. The average duration is almost 10 minutes. It was slightly above 11 minutes at the beginning of the year. So we have also seen that and it makes sense that you take the self-assessment at some time, you learn from and you implement the recommendations out of the self-assessment report, and you come back sometime later, right, to run again the self-assessment and compare where you are today versus where you were a couple of months before, after taking some actions. But still, we are seeing that the completion rate is quite slow. But it's also a lesson learned for us. It might mean something that the kindness team needs to deeply look into, probably to ease the self-assessment tool itself. But so far, some quite encouraging news is that we have today, as of today, 6 critical and top-level operators who have officially, openly, and voluntarily joined the kindness framework. And to join, it means that not only you have taken the self-assessment, you have applied the recommendations, and you have reached 80 or 100% of the best practices for your category. And then the next step is that you voluntarily submit a request to join the kindness team. Then when you submit the request, the kindness team will now ask you to kindly share with the kindness community your best practices. It is not to reveal your secrets, but still it is an opportunity to enrich the guideline database. So by sharing the way you are implementing those practices in your infrastructure, you are providing, different options for the other participants in the future to have more choices in terms of how they could implement those best practices, depending on different, constraints in the network, in the infrastructure, probably also in terms of staff resources that they have, etc., etc. We also have a couple of other operators who joined in the different other categories, and really it is time to call for some operators in the region here and in Oman to also, go through the kindness assessment and join the kindness community. Hopefully, and we are here to support and to drive you through the process. Quickly, some also other interesting statistics, for instance, is that 41% of those who took the self-assessment clearly mentioned that their expectation is to use the result to convince their organization, their manager, to do better in terms of securing the DNS infrastructure, which is something quite interesting and encouraging for us, because at the beginning of this project, one of the objectives were really to provide a clear, simple framework that provides some, some KPIs, some meaningful data to managers to take decisions. And it's quite encouraging to see that almost 50% of those who take the self-assessment is to have this kind of reports that could help us discuss and engage with the management. There are many other lessons learned, but I want to really go into the details for the sake of time. And again, how did we select those best common practices? It was through this kindness mailing list. Again, it is really open. You can join. You can raise your voice. You can share your own opinion. There are still some discussion ongoing about some of those best practices. So there are some operators who think that like rate limiting should be a best practice today. But there is another part of the community in the kindness mailing list that think that rate limiting is not really a best operational practice for instance. So we need to reach a consensus before a practice is approved and join the kindness assessment. There are a couple of things in the pipeline, and hopefully by next year, I will come back again to MENOG to give some updates on this. One of them is to provide the self-assessment in different languages. As of today, it's only available in English. Another one is to also automate the kindness assessment. And probably the 40% of those who complete the assessment is also an important KPI for us at the kindness team to actually, accelerate this automation. But the automation will not be full. That's my personal opinion here, because there are some questions that cannot be automated. We still rely on human to provide the answer. For instance, are you doing a validation of the zone file before publishing it to the public name servers? There is really no way to automate that. We need someone from the organization to actually tell us if this is done or not, right? Of course, there will be a continuous engagement. We are collaborating with various organizations. Some people in the community are interested, for instance, to do some additional measurement related to kindness effectiveness, and we are collaborating, and we are open to collaborate. I know that there's also many other organizations that provide a sort of guidelines, some best practices, right, to set up DNS servers. But still, what we were missing was this self-assessment, a kind of place where you can go and run your assessment yourself and get a result. So the best practices are there, but how are you implementing them, and at which extent you are implementing them was something missing, and this is what KINDNS is trying to actually fix. So, like I said, there are some discussion points that are still open, and if you have your own opinion about some of them, feel free to share them with us in the KINDNS community. I will end this presentation with some external additional tools that we do think that are quite useful when you are dealing with DNS infrastructures. So Zone Master, for instance, is a pretty useful tool when it comes to checking the zone configuration for any kind of domain name which is operational. And we are currently even working with Zone Master to actually provide an automated version of this KINDNS. It is an open source tool. You can go online and use it. It's really, really, really useful. But when you compare KINDNS to Zone Master, for instance, right? Zone Master is automated, definitely. It provides you a report, yes, but it doesn't tell you, it doesn't provide you some guidelines to fix the issues that were discovered. Zone Master relies on your expertise, right, to find the solution to address the identified issues. But KINDNS actually will provide you some recommendations on how you could address them. And this is why we find those tools to be complementing each other. And of course, DNS-Viz, if you are doing DNSSEC to verify the chain of trust, is really important. Otherwise, if your DNS is broken, you will become bogus, and this is also another kind of critical issue. We have seen recently some countries going through some very bad situation due to the broken chain of trust at the CCTLD level. Yeah, if you want to stay informed about KINDNS and contribute, please join us and follow the website, thekindness.org. Join us on X Twitter. Feel free to drop us an email and share your opinion, share any comments that you may have. And the last one as well, of course, if you are interested in joining the mailing list. Thank you, and I'm still around for a couple of hours, so feel free to take the self-assessment and let us know. My colleague Fahad and myself, we are still around, and we will be happy to support. Thank you, and back to the room.
Thank you, Yazid. Very informative. Do we have any questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.